Good morning. It is good to see all of you online today, I'm Karin Landsberg with the OUUC tech team. I use she, her pronouns. Welcome to all who are joining us on whatever platform you are using. This Zoom service is being recorded and it is streaming live to YouTube. We use the Zoom chat feature for greetings, song lyrics, affirmations, and applause, and for items shared from the heart. The chat is not posted or shared publicly. If you experience any technical issues during the service, you can reach out to Jocelyn or another member of the tech team for assistance when the chat is on. Last, I hope you will find a candle or a chalice. In a moment, we can light them together. Thank you for your grace and adaptability. As we all remember, it's about connection, not perfection.
Good morning. Let's sing our morning song together. It's hymn number 298. Wake Now My Senses, and you can also find the lyrics posted in the chat. Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow, giving, receiving, as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty of wisdom and time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering, feel the wide sky. Take as your neighbor, both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardships to end. Wake now my conscience, with justice my guide. Join all the people whose rights are denied. Take not the granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care. Thank you for singing this morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the Olympia Unitarian Universalist Congregation online worship service. We welcome each of you to this celebration of love and to this congregation. The OUUC community comes together in the mutual promises and possibilities of our covenant. We envision an interconnected world that is loving, just, and healthy. We commit to live out our mission to welcome and wonder, embrace and empower, bridge and become. We're so glad that you are here. My name is Des McGarren. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a member of the worship arts team. Leading worship with me today is our minister, Reverend Mary Gear, Troy Fisher, our music director, and Sarah Lewis, the Director of Community and Faith Development. We are grateful for the many hands that helped make worship happen this morning. Thank you to the breakout room hosts, the tech team members, and all who contribute in so many ways. After the service, everyone will have the chance to discuss reflection questions offered by Reverend Mary. For those online, we invite you to go into a breakout room for a virtual coffee chat. This is a chance to gather with a small group to say hello and check in. Each breakout room will be hosted by someone to help make sure everyone knows each other and has a chance to share. We hope you'll join the discussion. Now let us open our hearts and minds as we prepare for worship. Welcome everyone. It is good to be together. This morning and every Sunday morning, we join Unitarian Universalist congregations around the world in lighting a chalice, the symbol of our faith tradition. Please join me as we light our chalices together with these words by A. Powell Davies. Here we are, all of us, all upon this planet, bound together in a common destiny, living our lives between the briefness of the daylight and the dark. Kindred in this, each lighted by the same precarious, flickering flame of life. How does it happen that we are not kindred in all things else? How strange and foolish are these walls of separation that divide us?
Good morning, everyone. Our opening words this morning are "We Meet on Holy Ground" by Richard S. Gilbert. We meet on holy ground, brought into being as life encounters life, as personal histories merge into the communal story, as we take on the pride and pain of our companions, as separate selves become community. How desperate is our need for one another, our silent beckoning to our neighbors, our invitations to share life and death together, our welcome into the lives of those we meet, and their welcome into our own. May our souls capture this treasured time. May our spirits celebrate our meeting in this time and in this space, for we meet on holy ground. Come, let us worship together.
Let's sing together again. Our opening hymn is found on page hymn number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. You can find these lyrics also posted in the chat. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, well, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our stories from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of a sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place. Thank you for singing.
Our story today is about a small fish named Small Fry. And Small Fry lived in a pond beneath a big mountain. Now, if any of you know your fish, you might realize that this kind of fish wouldn't live in a small pond, but just use your imagination. So Small Fry lived in this pond with a whole school of other fish. And the pond was pretty small, so all day they would just swim in circles around and around the pond. And it was fairly dark and murky, so they couldn't see anything outside of their pond. As far as they knew, the pond was the entire world. Now, also living in this pond was Frog. Frog, while spending some of the time in the water, also spent some of the time outside of the water. And although Frog was not a fish, Frog loved to socialize with fish and to tell them stories. And some of Frog's favorite stories were about the world outside the pond. Most of the fish didn't listen to these stories, but Small Fry loved Frog's stories and would listen as Frog told about things like trees and flowers and mountains. But of course, Small Fry had never seen these things, and the other fish said they didn't exist. So mostly, Small Fry thought that Frog was just making things up. And one day, Frog realized this and said, "You just don't believe anything I'm saying, do you?" And Small Fry thought for a while and then said, "Well, no, I'm sorry. All the other fish say that you just make these stories up and there's nothing outside of the pond." Said Frog. "I have a way to show you what's outside the pond if you're brave enough to try." Small Fry thought about that. Why, it did seem awfully scary to see what was outside the pond if there was anything outside the pond. But on the other hand, Frog's stories were very fascinating, and to catch a glimpse of that, So Small Fry decided, yes, I am brave enough. And so Frog said, "Excellent. Come up to the surface, the very top of the pond, tomorrow morning, and I will have the great bird of the mountain come and meet you and take you to see the world outside the pond." And so the next day, Small Fry went up to the very top of the pond and waited. And then suddenly, something came and snatched Small Fry up and lifted Small Fry out of the water. It was the great bird of the mountain, who was holding Small Fry ever so gently in its talons. "You must be the great bird of the mountain," said Small Fry. "Why, yes," said the bird, "and you must be Small Fry. Now we don't have much time, so let's go." And up they went. And Small Fry saw the pond down below, looking so small now, what had been their whole world. And then Small Fry saw flowers and trees and the mountain and deer and rabbits and bears and all sorts of creatures that walked about on the land and other creatures that flew in the sky like the great bird. And then all too soon, the great bird of the mountain said, "That's enough. Fish can't be out of the water for too long." And down they went back, and Small Fry was released ever so gently back into the water. Well, that was amazing to see the whole world outside of the pond. "Frog, I didn't believe all your stories before, but oh, it's so amazing," said Small Fry. I can't wait to tell all the other fish. Well, said Frog, you can try, but they won't believe you in all likelihood. But Small Fry wanted to tell. And so Small Fry gathered up the other fish and told them all about the world outside the pond. Now, in the story as originally written by the authors, the other fish don't believe Small Fry. And in fact, Small Fry has to just decide that they'll believe all by themselves. But I prefer this end to the story, for these were open-minded fish who like to learn from one another. And so they said, oh, what is this world outside? And Small Fry told them all about it. And then they came up with an idea that in fact, if they swam fast enough, that they could build up speed and they could leap ever so briefly out of their pond, catch a glimpse of the world beyond, and then dive back into their own world. And so they did, and caught their glimpses of the world outside the pond. Thus ends our story.
In this sacred space, we offer our gratitude in many ways. And this morning, we take a moment to offer our thanks to Riley McLaughlin for his many years of service to OUUC. For more than 25 years, Riley has led the audiovisual team at OUUC, helping to make us sound good. Many of us know Riley as the guy behind the soundboard in the sanctuary, or the guy behind the camera making special recordings. Riley, you have helped shape the look and sound of OUUC for so many years. Thank you. Recently, Riley elected to be a bit less involved in the Sunday morning worship, and I am so grateful and glad that Riley continues to support our connections by curating the recordings of Melanie's talk show and making other special recordings like the Stewardship Drive. Thank you for continuing to support our community. And Riley, as thanks from the congregation, you received a collection of jazz by John Coltrane and Miles Davis. Good sound as a thank you for making OUUC sound good. And the tech team also put together a thank you for Riley. Joe? Riley, We hope you are feeling some of the gratitude we are sending your way. And I'd like to invite everyone here today to join in offering their thanks. We've opened the chat for you to enter your appreciation if you like. I would also invite you to show your gratitude with a gesture. You might clap your hands or give jazz hands or a bow or put a reaction in your Zoom screen. And we'll pause for just a moment, Riley, so you can scroll through all of the boxes and take it in. Riley, thank you so much for all that you have done and will do. And more than anything, thank you for your presence in our community. We came into community this morning bringing all that is in our lives, the gratitude and the joy, and our sorrows. In this space, we draw on the strength of our community to hold everything that we bring here with us. In this space, we share from our hearts what brings us joy and sorrow, what brings us worry and delight, what makes us afraid, and what makes us dance. Let's open our hearts to the complexity of life, our own and others. You will hear a drumbeat as we share today. It brings into our awareness that our individual hearts beat, and together we create the heartbeat of our community. So right now, let's just take a breath together as we open our hearts to receive the complexity of all that is in our life today. Sally Brennan shares that she started on a breast cancer journey late last year. Sally says it is a very curable cancer, and she has a superb surgeon at Swedish in Seattle. The first step is a bilateral mastectomy on March 9th. You can follow Sally's Caring Bridge site to accompany her on this journey, and I know she'll let us know what she needs as she goes along. Sally and Bob say, "We know you, and we know we have your support. It means the world." Sally and Bob, know that you are surrounded by love. Tomorrow, Sarah Lewis begins her 3-month sabbatical as she prepares for ordination as an interfaith chaplain in April. I know Sarah has a super long reading list and has set aside time for reflection and rest. Sarah, may your sabbatical be what you need. We look forward to your return in May. I invite you now to share from your heart by entering in the chat what is on your mind and in your heart. This is the time to share all that you wish. joys and sorrows and whatever else is shared from your heart. And as we take in what is posted, let us hear the heartbeat of our community and reach out our hearts in love and care to all those who share. I'll place a stone in the water for all that is being shared from the heart, a stone holding the complexity of our lives, held in the water of community. And one more stone, placed in the water for all that we hold in our hearts and that remains unspoken. I invite you into a time of reflection, prayer, and meditation. Infinite web of life, spirit of love, great mystery that knows us and sees us. In this sacred space, we come together for ourselves and for each other, going to the well to refill our cups, to nourish our souls. On this holy ground, we come together to celebrate our meeting, our community. And in this blessed world, we come together to accept each other and encourage each other to what it is that we can become. On this day, may all be fed, may all be healed, may all be loved. Let's hold a moment of silence together.
I invite you to join if you'd like with this lovely chant by John Denver. All this joy. The lyrics are going to be posted in the chat so you can join along, and it's pretty easy to catch on to. All this joy, all this sorrow, all this promise, all this pain, such is being, such is spirit, such is love. City of joy, city of joy, city of sorrow, city of promise, city of pain, such is life, such is being, such is spirit, such is love. World of joy, world of joy, world of sorrow, world of promise, world of pain, such is life, such is being, such is spirit, such is love. All this joy, all this joy, all this sorrow, all this promise, all this pain, such is life, such is being, such is spirit, such is love, such is spirit, such is love.
We may have lost our celebrant.
Is Des on? It may be that we lost our celebrant briefly. So let me invite the offering then. Our prayers and meditations deepen our gratitude for what we know is sacred in our lives and in this world. Each Sunday, we express our gratitude by joining together in service to our community and to something greater than ourselves. I think I saw Des come back on, so Des, if you would like to pick it up from here, please.
My apologies.
Welcome to Zoom.
Reverend Mary, I don't know which sentence you stopped at.
Of course. It's the second paragraph. The offering collected here does two things.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Des.
The offering collected here does two things. It supports the ongoing work of OUUC, which is also supported by our regular pledges. This offering also supports an organization that serves our community in harmony with our Unitarian Universalist values. For January and February, our Share the Plate recipient is Thurston Climate Action Team. TCAT is a local nonprofit dedicated to bringing our community together to reduce climate disruption, resulting in a healthy, just, and prosperous future for all. Funded in 2009, they focus on initiatives that quickly, significantly, and equitably reduce greenhouse gas emissions in Thurston County. Please note that you can participate in the offering by making a donation online through the church website or by texting the number that will appear on your screen in just a moment. You can also mail a check to OUUC. Together, we can do so much more than each of us alone. May the offering now be generously given as it is gratefully received.
Thank you for your generous gifts. The third principle of the Unitarian Universalist Association is acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Our first reading is an excerpt from a reflection on the third principle by Reverend Rob Hardies, a Unitarian Universalist minister. Spiritual growth isn't about a vertical ascent to heaven, but about growth in every dimension at once. It's spirituality in 3D. Growth in spirit doesn't measure one's proximity to God above, but rather the spaciousness of one's own soul, its volume, its capacity, its size. We need souls that can take in the world in all its complexity and diversity, yet still remain and maintain our integrity. And we need souls that can love and be in relationship with all of this complexity. Instead of fight or flight, we need a spiritual posture of embrace.
Our second reading is an excerpt from a reflection by Franciscan priest Richard Rohr titled, "Everyone Belongs, the Three Boxes." Whenever we're led out of normalcy into sacred, open space, it's going to feel like suffering because it is letting go of what we're used to. This is always painful at some level, but part of us has to die if we are ever to grow larger. The role of the prophet is to lead us into sacred space by deconstructing the old space. The role of the priest is to teach us how to live fruitfully in sacred space. The prophet disconnects us from the false, and the priest reconnects us to the real at ever larger levels. If priests have been largely unsuccessful, it is because there are so few prophets. This ends our reading.
3 years ago, when I was in search of a congregation to serve, I read the materials from quite a few congregations that were in search of a minister to serve them. There were several things about OUUC that stood out and that made me consider the possibility. One was that the social justice work here was named Faith in Action. That told me that this congregation wasn't afraid of words like faith, even though the language of reverence carries some baggage that may need to be unpacked and sorted through. It also told me that this was a congregation that understood how important it is to know our values, our faith, and to act in ways that bring our values into the world. Values like interconnection, dignity, and transformation. This was a congregation that knew about putting faith into action. How a congregation brings its life energy into the life of the world and works for justice, well, that is one of the ways that congregations grow. People who study congregations call this incarnational growth. And this simply means making an abstract concept more concrete, like making values real, like putting faith into action. And scholars say that incarnational growth is only one of 5 ways that congregations grow, and that a healthy congregation grows in all of these ways. Now, for those of you who like to get more information after a service, we'll put in the chat a link to the 5 ways to grow so you can read it later if you want to. Another way that congregations grow is organically. And this simply means how a congregation builds a community, one that supports individual growth, connection, and making a difference in the world. It's about the governance model, or how a congregation makes decisions and allocates authority and responsibility. It includes the congregational covenant, or the agreements that we make about how we will be together. It's about having physical space and staff to support the size of the congregation. And we've learned in the past 2 years that it also means supporting virtual space and infrastructure. Organic growth is about nurturing the living fibers that bind us together. A third way that congregations grow is maturational. This is the ability of a congregation to challenge, support, and encourage its members to grow spiritually. This is how a congregation supports us as we deepen our faith and broaden our understanding of the sacred. It is also how we support the spiritual growth of current members and participants, and at the same time have a welcome path for newcomers. This kind of spiritual growth means that we learn to recognize differences, knowing that diversity is a value that helps us all grow. And it's how we handle disagreement and behavior that is out of covenant. A mature and healthy congregation is one that has clear expectations of behavior and that can lovingly hold accountable all those who are in the community. And just like with people, maturity doesn't happen just because a person or a congregation gets older. It requires intentional focus on learning and putting into action the wisdom that comes from that learning. The fourth way that congregations grow is in connections, meaning how we are connected to the rest of Unitarian Universalism, connected to the Pacific Western region, and connected to other congregations in Olympia. A growing congregation knows that it is not alone, and it is connected to something greater. And last, congregations grow in numbers. And growth in numbers doesn't just mean adding new members. It also means maintaining the number of members already within the congregation and keeping track of losses to understand why they happen. Numerical growth means changing the things that need to be changed in order to retain healthy members. It means acknowledging that some losses are healthy or inevitable when we don't compromise our ethics or principles. As we prepare to celebrate the 70th anniversary of OUUC in June, we can celebrate all the ways that OUUC has grown over the years. Some of you have experienced the growth of the congregation from a family-sized fellowship to a mid-sized program-focused congregation. The congregation grew from the Little White Church in Tumwater to the current building. And as the congregation has grown, the structures needed to support the growth have changed with different governance, more organization, more staff, and policies. And I hope many of you have grown spiritually. As we grow individually, we also grow collectively. OUUC has grown so much over the years in all these ways, and we must continue to grow and change in order to be healthy and relevant. What is clear is that growth means change. It means learning new skills and new ways of being. It means letting go of what no longer serves us or serves the community. It means grieving what we miss from the way things used to be. Growing takes work, and sometimes it is painful. Grieving sure is painful. And part of maturity is being able to feel our own pain and to be compassionate in the face of another's pain. Right now, our staff team is learning and growing together by reading My Grandmother's Hands by Resmaa Menakem. The book's subtitle is Healing Racialized Trauma and the Pathways to Mending Our Hearts and Bodies. We are learning together how supremacy culture has shaped us and shows up in our work. In his book, Menakem identifies two kinds of pain, clean pain and dirty pain. Now, I know that clean and dirty have all kinds of meanings, and not all of them are useful or just. It helps me to think of these two terms in a medical way. A wound that is clean can heal. A wound that is dirty will get infected and not heal. So clean pain is the necessary discomfort of healing, the pain needed to mend, and that supports growth. Menakem writes, "It's the pain when you experience when you know exactly what you need to say or do, when you really, really don't want to say or do it, and you do it anyway. It is also the pain you experience when you have no idea what to do, when you're scared or worried about what might happen, and when you step forward into the unknown anyway, with honesty and vulnerability." I would name that as the pain of growth, spiritual growth for individuals and for congregations. The other kind of pain is what Menakem calls dirty pain, the pain of avoidance, blame, and denial. It's the pain that we try to lessen by turning away or by hurting others. It's the pain of cruelty and violence in our words or our actions. It's the pain that causes us to fight or flee, emotionally or physically. Dirty pain creates more pain. It never leads to healing or health. When we bring our clean pain into our faith community, when it is a safe place to be vulnerable and share, we can seek comfort and companions. It's one of the ways that we minister to each other. We help each other through the pain. We can accompany and witness the growth and healing of each other. It's how we live into our third principle of acceptance and encouraging spiritual growth. And when we bring our dirty pain into our faith community, it is the job of the community to notice and name what we are doing, to notice when the pain is hurting others, to shelter those being hurt, and then to help us realize that we are acting out of our unhealthy pain. Even though we are in community, we cannot change someone else or grow for them. We cannot feel someone else's pain for them. We can empathize to help them work through it, but we can't take on the pain of another. What we can do is accompany, witness, challenge, and hold each other accountable to our covenant, doing all of this with love, with an embracing soul. Growth and maturity requires that we not allow a concern for growth in numbers to cause us to compromise our values and principles. Sometimes the kinds of growth are in tension with each other, requiring our careful discernment about values and priorities. As we got to know each other in the minister search process 3 years ago, I heard many stories about how much change and transition OUUC had been through. And when I arrived here as your minister, it quickly became clear that some of you had experienced or were experiencing a lot of pain. Some of it was clean pain, pain that was part of the healing process, and it's a process that takes time. And it was clear that some were left with the results of what Menachem calls dirty pain: avoidance, blame, and denial. This kind of pain is not unusual in congregations, especially those who have experienced a lot of transition. Some of that pain is still here, and it keeps coming back. It will until we address it. Here are some of the ways that dirty pain shows up in my life, and ways that I notice it in the life of our congregation. It's the pain of holding on to a past, expecting it to continue, while knowing that it will never be again. The pain of clinging to plans that we love and invested in, and that may not fit a world that has changed. The pain of past conflicts that remain unresolved. The pain of past communal decisions that we as individuals disagree with. It's the pain of avoiding the grief we'd feel if we mourned that past, the discomfort we'd feel if we faced that conflict. It is also the disappointment that the pain is still here. I wonder if any of those sound familiar to you. And then 7 months into our shared ministry together, our new ministry, we went into COVID. We pivoted with success, and we are doing pretty well. And now, almost 2 years into the global pandemic, there is even more pain. We have suffered so many losses, including the loss of people dear to us. I feel this pain too. I grieve the loss of beloved members and friends, and I grieve the loss of the ministry with you that I had imagined. My imagination back then wasn't creative enough to include a global pandemic and 2 years of virtual church. And underneath the new, some of the old pain is still here. I know this is true for myself, and I experience it as true in our community. The conflicts, disappointments, hurts, and challenges resurface, sometimes in familiar ways and sometimes in new ways. The pain of denial, avoidance, and blame doesn't heal until we clean the wound. It will hurt for a time, but then the healing can begin. That pain doesn't define any of us as individuals, and it doesn't define this congregation. We are more than that. There is much that has been worked through, and we still have some work to do. And that brings us back to where we started, putting our faith in action. Sometimes we think that putting our faith into action is how we act out there, out in the community or out in the world. It is. And it is also how we act in here, how we are in relationship with each other. Putting our faith in action is how we live our values in the congregation, how we treat each other, how we welcome those who are different from us, if and how we transform conflict, how we tend to the building, and what we ask of each other and of the staff. In his essay on the third principle of Unitarian Universalism, Reverend Rob Hardy says that the purpose of church is to provide spiritual sustenance for world engagement. Spiritual sustenance for world engagement. I agree. There are many wonderful organizations that we could be a part of that do good in the world. What is unique about a faith community, the reason we exist and are so needed, is for spiritual grounding and spiritual growth. At its best, a faith community is where we can discern what we believe and how to act out of those beliefs. A faith community is a place where we can learn and practice the skills of being together, how we listen deeply and speak honestly and directly, how we negotiate differences, and how we transform conflict. What we learn here is what we bring out there. Here, we can learn and practice the skills we need in order to help create the world we envision that is loving, just, and healthy. If we don't learn these skills, we add to the hurt in the world rather than help with healing. As we move through this time of pandemic, one thing is clear: we will never be the same. Ways of being that didn't serve us have been laid bare. Every individual, community, nation, and every congregation is being invited to ask, who are we now? And who do we want to be in the future? Nationally, we are wrestling with climate change, racism, and threats to democracy. As a congregation, we are working to develop healthy processes for decision-making, authority, and responsibility, how we live into a new mission, and how to create a sustainable shared ministry. These questions and challenges are not new in the nation or in this congregation. But how we addressed them before is no longer sufficient. We have to find new ways that are inclusive and just. That is the work that we are called to now. We are being invited to grow. We have moved out of what was normal and been invited into sacred space. In this sacred space, we will be asked to grieve the past. We are asked to grieve the past, to grieve what we have lost. It's going to feel like suffering because it is letting go of what we're used to. But we decide if we experience clean pain or dirty pain. We decide how we will act as individuals and as a community. Because in sacred space, on holy ground, we can also dream. That's the opportunity we have been given. There is plenty that we cannot control. How we answer this call, respond to this invitation to grow, well, that is up to us. We can work through what is needed to be healthier, more loving, more just. We can encourage each other to individual spiritual growth, and we can mature as a congregation. We can learn and practice new skills. We can grow into a shared ministry. We can decide how to put our faith into action right here. We can welcome growth. I know we can. It's ours to choose. May we choose well. Let's move into a time of holy silence together.
Let's sing together our closing hymn. Hymn number 396, I Know This Rose Will Open. The first time through we'll sing the pronoun my, and the second time through we'll sing our. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wing. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know our fear will burn away. I know our soul will unfurl its wing. I know this rose will open.
Please join me as we extinguish our chalices together. And as we do so, may the light give us the courage to love amidst life's pain, to be open to possibilities, and may its light remain as an invitation to grow.
I have a few announcements today. Be sure to return to the main room or remain here after the coffee chat today for After Church with Melanie Ransom. Melanie's guest today is Sage Barber. Today is the OUUC in the OUUC parking lot. We will be collecting food donations and socializing with hot drinks and a fire pit from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Please join us. This Thursday evening spiritual practice features Woody Moore sharing his practice of love. Join Woody and Anne Radford for an evening of learning and reflection at 7 p.m. on Zoom. For next Sunday's service, we will be joining UU congregations in the Pacific Western region as we worship together in the annual Regional Assembly. Just log in as usual for this service, followed by breakout rooms and then Melanie's talk show. Next week's guest is Jack Jackson. There are many opportunities to stay connected to our community. Please check the website regularly. If you have questions or need help, please check in with a staff member. Thank you for being here today.
Let's sing together our unison benediction. We are part of the web of life. We are part of the web of love. May our words, may our deeds pull the strands of the infinite web toward health, toward justice, toward love.